You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of dreams and nightmares, of things and ideas. It's the middle ground between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. That signpost ahead is your destination named your reality, board on the corner. This episode of Board on the Corner is somewhat unique and calls for a very different introduction. This, as you may recognize, is a common metropolitan newspaper, the sort of thing that many people read every single day, reading stories about the world around them that they usually ignore a few minutes later, unless it's the latest fiasco from a drunken celebrity. But the fact is, there are many stories buried within its pages, if they are printed at all, that are just a lot more unusual than one would expect. The sort of things that are labeled as jokes and curiosities, but every single one of them is true. The reality is that you're truly just one wrong turn from finding yourself truly in the Twilight Zone. Consider the case of the 43-year-old Japanese woman who had a virtual marriage in the online community called MapleStory. One day she finds herself divorced from her virtual husband, without any word. What is a jolted techno-spouse to do? She used her hubby's login to kill her cyber ex-husband, albeit in a digital form. She's been charged with hacking. At first I thought that this was very bizarre behavior, even for a jolted wife, but how is this any different from an angry spouse that slashes her husband's tires or drills a hole in his favorite boat? Then there's 66-year-old Marianne O'Neill of Fort Pierce, Florida. Earlier this month, she went into a local Waffle House, ordered a coffee and sandwich, then refused to pay the bill, even when ordered to by police. She was arrested for the misdemeanor, and if convicted, she could be jailed for 2 months and fined $500. If you were wondering, her sandwich and coffee would have cost her just $7.45. While this show is all in favor of sticking to your guns, it is also the first to say that this was a really stupid fight to pick. In Lincoln, Nebraska, a judge ruled to throw out a lawsuit against God, saying that the Almighty was not properly served due to his unlisted home address. The lawsuit was filed by independent state senator Ernie Chambers, seeking a permanent injunction against God on the grounds that he allegedly made terroristic threats against himself and his Omaha constituents. Supposedly, the purpose of the lawsuit was to prove a point, that anyone should have access to the courts regardless of whether they're rich or poor. It is beyond me how soon God has anything to do with the average person having his or her day in court, but then again, much about religious intolerance baffles me anyway. Finally, in a case of romance truly being dead, a judge has told an Iowa woman to stay away from her fiancé, who she is due to marry in 2 weeks, because in the midst of an argument over her driving, she not only bit her beloved's hand, but ran over his foot. At the risk of making a very cheap joke, my advice to her would-be husband is to run as far away as he can, once the bones have all healed, that is. What's that you say? Too mundane, is it? Alright, if you want more lurid tales, then I will be happy to oblige. As many of us know, a common feature in Halloween haunt shows is a fake hanging, but I can show you some examples of why this is not a wise thing to try at home. Twice in October of 1990, teenagers have actually died as a result of these stage stunts gone horribly wrong. The same calamity also happened in October of 2001 under the same circumstances. Each time, the hangings were mistaken for just a part of the show. Before I go, I'll provide a public service and remind parents and children alike to be careful of what kind of treats they accept from certain people. While it's rare for Halloween treats to be poisoned or have blades and pins hidden in them, it has nonetheless happened. 1982 is an especially horrid year for these antics. Please be sure not to eat any treats that are homemade or unpackaged. And boys and girls, please be patient and let your mom and dad check everything you brought home before you stuff yourselves with sweets. Thank you. I really have nothing more to say here, nothing at all. I just wanted to show you some of the more colorful locations in the world, some of the more special residents. Real or urban legend, shadow or superstition, but all very much a part of the Twilight Zone. Just goes to show you that fact is really much more strange than fiction when you're bored on the corner.